Welcome back to Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime, where today we're doing something a little bit different. You see, for a long time now, I've gotten requests to read a good story for this segment, and while I'm not entirely sure such a thing exists, now that my brain has been destroyed by all the poor stories, I figured I'd give it a shot anyways. And so we're heading back to our old stomping grounds, the Creepypasta Wiki, because logic would dictate that at this point, if a story is still on the wiki, it must be good. Theoretically. Probably not, but we'll see. And so today, I'll tell you the thrilling tale of Zelda 64 Beta. When I was a child, one of my favorite games was The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Anyone who's played it can probably figure out why. Yes, anyone who's played the game is probably psychic and knows what you're thinking, even if they don't particularly find it their favorite. Naturally, as a very popular game, it spawned a lot of rumors and legends, like that one about Zelda, especially back in the day when communication through the internet wasn't as common. Most of these legends are false, like that one about Zelda, but sometimes a surprising amount of truth can be found in them. A while ago, I had read an article about early versions of Zelda 3D, and in parentheses, as it was called in development, and apparently these early versions were incredibly different from the released version. It was modeled after the original Legend of Zelda, rather than A Link to the Past. Was Ocarina of Time based on A Link to the Past? Yuriofwind isn't sure. And as such, was a lot more free-roaming and adventurous than the one we got. At the time, it sounded awesome, and I even found myself wondering why they had abandoned the project. I concluded that it was probably due to the technical requirements of such a feat. And you're close, it's because the game was originally being developed from the ground up with the 64DD in mind, and then that bombed. So they moved it to cartridge, but close enough. Still, one thing that especially stuck with me were the pictures. I fucking love pictures. Some were nondescript, nothing special, but one showed a large, expansive desert environment. There was a palm tree and a small oasis near a much more primitive looking Link, as well as some enemies. Past that, however, was just sand, stretching to the horizon. The thoughts of what might lay beyond that desert seemed to stick the image to my mind. Maybe there was more sand over there. And then there's this line in the story, and then after that we skip several years, because it's Ocarina of Time. Moving 7 years in the shut up. The article was only a vague recollection, nothing important. I was hanging out at the local game shop with one of my friends. He's telling me about his day, and tells me how some guy came in to sell his missing son's old video games, because I know when my son goes missing, I'm gonna want to sell his stuff too. He showed me them, and they were all normal games. Oh, good they weren't weird games. A few Wii games, a few GameCube games, and a lot of Nintendo 64 games. Still, the only one that really caught my eye was a red cartridge with no label, except a piece of tape with the word Zelda ? Written over it in marker. Naturally, this got me curious. A cartridge that said Zelda ? How can you not be interested in that? My friend didn't share my curiosity, but he didn't think he could sell the game. Because how can you sell a game that has a sticker on it? That's stupid. And he just let me take it home for free and indulge myself. Naturally, I did. The moment the game started, I realized it wasn't the Zelda I was used to. The title screen was nothing but a nondescript The Legend of Zelda. No subtitles, no fancy font, no music. Just those words in black bordered lettering. The background wasn't from Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask either. Why would it be from Majora's Mask? But it was an overhead view of what could only be called ancient ruins. That's the only thing you can call them legally. They looked very sinister and grotesque, similar to something from Majora's Mask. You're hung up on Majora's Mask, stop it. Only without any hint of the mystical atmosphere that accompanied any Zelda game. Like Faces of Evil, they were simply unnerving. Still, this didn't stop my curiosity, it only kept me going. As soon as I press start, the game begins. A novel concept. It skipped over any file screens and dumps a blocky looking Link into an empty black environment. And when I say black, I mean black. There was nothing separating ground and sky, just blackness. And as we all know, it doesn't get much more black than the word blackness. The only thing that let me notice that the game even worked, besides the fact that you said Link was in it, was a temple in the distance that you could somehow see despite black being everywhere. The temple was not black for some reason. So, your story has plot holes in it. But similar to the one in the opening, moving still seemed to work fine, suggesting that something probably glitched with the textures on the ground. Of course, it's a glitch. And sky. Still, it seemed strange that nothing happened to any other textures. There are no any other textures. It's all black. You just said blackness. And that it was all black, and now you can see a temple, but stop it. Entering the temple was my only choice. You could have shut off the game too, dude. No one's forcing you to do anything. So I took it. One thing that's worth mentioning is, I'm making this all up, also, is that the game started with no music, just deathly silence. However, the closer you came to the temple, the more music was available to hear. Sure. Well, it wasn't really music. I just lied to you, see? It sounded like moaning. Moaning isn't... No. Similar to the redeads in Ocarina of Time, but more tinny and badly recorded. Every once in a while, some sobs could be heard, but they were quickly stifled. Entering the temple made everything seem more like a Zelda game. But something caught my eye. Rather than the textures being worse than those in Ocarina of Time, they were better, like magic. There was more detail in everything, but it was all dingy and rotten looking. Does it look good or does it not look good? Make up your mind. Extra polygons only serve to make things look more grotesque. The random blood splatters didn't help anything. We're going with blood, are we? But this is a good story because it's on the Creepypasta wiki. That's reassuring. But yes, the random blood splatters, they didn't help anything either. There was a comma there as well. It didn't take long for me to realize that this entire dungeon could hardly be called Zelda-like. Puzzles usually only consisted of pulling a lever or pressing a switch, something you never do in Zelda games. In fact, there wasn't even any sliding blocks. This isn't a Zelda game, there's no sliding blocks! There were no enemies either, but the blood splatters on the wall soon served to be warnings of booby traps. Some became inescapable and simply send you back to the darkness again, where you can't see anything except for Link and the temple and the textures. Other are escapable but still extremely creepy and ... depressing. The dungeon was riddled with the low poly remains of dead adventurers, and sometimes they even had items on them. The items could be picked up, but the inventory screen seemed unfinished, and the game only auto-equipped the first 3 items picked up since there was no accessible inventory screen. After several gruesome deaths and retries, I find my way to a door marked with a scratched-on eye, similar to the ones on the lens of truth and various other objects. Entering this door revealed a boss battle. The music by this point had changed, and I only realized it by the last room. The moaning had never looped once, but still seemed to change according to the mood. The game has a mood. A discordant violin melody started playing, but the rest of the sound remained nothing but moans, sobs, yells, and weird scratching. It was never to rise past the level of background noise, but it still remained unnerving, almost as if it wasn't music at all. And no, moans, sobs, yells, and weird scratching doesn't really qualify as music, you're correct. But monsters that were wandering somewhere in the temple. When I said, oh my god, this is a long paragraph, shit. When I said entering the room revealed a boss battle, I was not entirely honest. I'm a liar, and I lie to you all the time. It can only be called a boss battle by the most generous of standards. It featured an empty room with the same textures on the walls as the rest of the temple. The only out-of-place aspect was a giant face on the other side of the room, colored as gray as the walls surrounding it. Its skin seemed stretched over its head and aligned with the wall, so it looked as if the wall was growing a face. Moss seemed to be growing over its closed eyes, and cracks were apparent everywhere on it. Still, the door I came in was locked, and the only thing to do was approach. I did so, carefully, making sure nothing was waiting for a surprise attack. I went up to the point where I was nearly in contact with the face. Nothing. It was still there. It was still a face, with its sunken eyes and cracked lips. I attacked it with my sword. The sword went through and made an incredibly vulgar, flesh-ripping sound. What? But nothing happened, except for the incredibly vulgar, flesh-ripping sound. There was that, but that's not important. I don't know why I even mentioned it, really. It remained there. I attacked some more, because that seemed like a good idea, and still more, until eventually the music stopped. Soon, the cacophony of violin music became even louder, and the moans started up even stronger. And then something happened. In one movement, its eyes opened, staring at me with dry, soulless eyeballs, and then ... nothing. The music was still louder, but I continued to attack the face with no reaction. Much like Yuriofwind's no reaction. Because nothing happened, right? Until it simply had enough, ripped to shreds, and fell away in a fire. In typical Zelda fashion, as you all know, everything lights itself on fire. The music had stopped. There was no more moans, screams, anything. I went through the door. What a fool I was. That was only the tutorial. Oh, that means there's more story. God damn it. The screen was replaced by a white screen, followed by a movement of extremely loud Brownian noise. I jumped. You can't jump in Zelda. But sure, you jumped, whatever. But it was over almost instantly. The white screen was replaced by Endless Desert, the one from the image. I was in shock by that point. I was creeped out enough to turn the game off. That's the most intelligent thing an author has ever done. Still, that respite didn't last long. I had nightmares of the game. Of course, it'd be too simple. It couldn't end here. Normal nightmares. Nothing weird about them. Again, I don't know why I bring this shit up. It was, after all, a pretty creepy game. However, what frightened me the most was something I skimmed over while I played and realized afterwards. The game changed each time I started over, is something I decided to include in the story just now. When I tried to make the same path through the labyrinth, I always ended up lost and confused. By the time I finished, I was relying on instinct. God knows I don't trust that. I kept going the next day, stopped only to eat and go to the bathroom. Important things. When I turned it on, it was still at the desert, even though there was no file screen. This time it was night. I walked. Sometimes I would walk for 20 minutes only to find a half-sunken obelisk or the ruins of what looked like some village hut. Other times there would be a skull or a few bones, but nothing more noticeable than that. Other times, might as well have just subtitled this story Other Times, I would get to see great expanses of oasis and tropical forests. I found my first enemies here. They were similar to Tektites, only with larger bodies, mostly containing their large eyes. They had those long legs and would still attack by leaping. Only when they hit you, they would pin you to the ground and attack. Soon, the sun rose, and I continued walking. Sometimes I would find small tombs. These were almost always similar in style to the first dungeon, only without the moaning and no bosses. What I did find was information. Runes scribbled into walls that could be read. You know, runes, you can read them. The description would almost always be vague, with phrases like ... and knowledge shall guide ... way to heavens ... Sometimes they would be followed by other comments, but most writings seemed glitched and unintelligible. It seemed to be a history, though. What? The maps I'd sometimes found confirmed it. I simply explored, and after a while, I learned to let instinct guide my way. Soon I found the next dungeon, a large pyramid rising out of the desert, upside down. Oh, it's a pyramid scheme. Over it, straight up to the sky, was another large upside down temple. So this is the Illuminati, is what he's getting at. And it stretched so far, I couldn't see the top. But I couldn't keep going. I needed sleep again. Way to wuss out. The next day came, and I entered the dungeon. It was like all the small tombs I would find, only a bit more perilous. More bottomless pits, chasms, spike traps, and monsters this time. Long arms that would grab you from the wall like wall masters, only these simply threw you into the traps, killing you. What probably used to be redeads and skeletons at the end of the dungeon, I found a large spiral staircase. Also, I just wanted to include that. I followed it up and up until I reached what seemed to be the top. It took 2 hours of climbing. You're shitting me. But the time seemed to fly by. It was so much fun walking up those stairs. I loved it. The top was merely a platform with a large ornate arrow pointing off the edge. Since there was nowhere else to go, I jumped. The screen again flashed white, and I was in a new area. This went on for the next few weeks. I played this game for the next few weeks. I'm insane. There were many places to visit, like that desert or the blackness area with the textures. And at times, I could find the borders where one locale met another. I started to name the locations I had been to, but although I started knowing all the places intimately, let that sink in. There never seemed to be an end to new locations. Sometimes I would go through one door and come out on the other side of the world. Places didn't behave by constant rules of space, but it seemed easier to find my way regardless. Each time I revisited a place, it was rearranged in a different, more navigable... Navigable? That doesn't look right. I'm calling question marks on this word. Navigable setup. From every corner, though, I could see the tower in the distance. I quickly realized that I had not reached the top, only fallen into one of many traps. In fact, I still have not reached the top. We're going places. In the few times I went about the real world... Wait, let me read that again. In the few times I went about the real world. That doesn't make sense. But I could feel the game was different. Mostly because I was in the real world now and not playing the fucking game. But it changed itself. It seemed to react to me. I was sure that a game like this should not have been able to be created. It's too insane. Remember when everything was black, but then it wasn't? It's impossible to recreate. But then, they were going for a free roaming experience more similar to the original Zelda. What if they succeeded? They created a world one could always roam, and they really did create a world. I had learned of many gods in that land. The three goddesses who had created such a perverted physical world. The god, he who sees, who decided to cleanse it. I still don't know my own route, but I felt that if I simply followed my instincts, I could find my goal. Someone seems to be overestimating their abilities. That's why I'm writing this now, though. My instincts told me to write a bad story. So here I am. And my instincts still tell me where to go. But it's not here on the Creepypasta Wiki. I don't even know why I posted this story. I'm gonna go. But I have to leave. Okay, well, I didn't even have to make the joke. Never mind. And I will do it! But before I go, I feel I have to leave this message for someone to find. I should warn you, though. It may be a game, but it knows you are playing. And that was Zelda 64 beta. I will say, I wouldn't call it a terrible story on the level of other stories I've read, because let's be realistic. I've read worse. This still was not a good story, though. I'll give it credit for not dipping into the creepypasta cliches, but at the same time, the story didn't really go anywhere. Nothing happened. It was just a story. So, kind of disappointing in that regard, but I'm surprised it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. This has been Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome back to End Slate. End Slate Live, because I'm streaming right now and I decided to do the End Slate Live. But hi, you just watched a Bullshit Creepypasta Storytime on Zelda 64 Beta, which was not as terrible of a story as I thought it was going to be, even though it's still technically not good. So I'm just as surprised as you are, but I hope you enjoyed the video nonetheless. If you enjoyed the video and you want to like it or subscribe, that's greatly appreciated, but I won't force you to do it. Moving on, social media stuff. I have a Twitter, as does Nico the artist, although I haven't heard from Nico in fucking months. He never got back to me. I don't know why. Did Nico go missing? We may never know. But I hope he's doing well, and he still does the art. Even though I decided to do different thumbnails this year. And by different thumbnails, I mean the old way I used to do thumbnails. And I should probably mention I have a Twitch, which I'm streaming on right now, as well as a Discord. Links to those will be in the description. And I also have a Patreon, and if you enjoy my content and want to help me produce more of it, feel free to check that out and maybe support me awkward noises from Yuriofwind, because I'm bad at this. Hey, speaking of that, I have some thank yous to give out, because that's how this works. And I have to thank some lovely people who support me on the Patreons. Patrons, they're called. Hi everyone. What's up? I love all of you. Thank you for the support. But I'm gonna thank you for real. And so much love and thank yous go out to Conradson. I made this account just for Yuri, Snooper, Lily Starflame, Skinny 720, Mr. Mohawk, Nikki Batelli, Moose Man, Kaminmum. Oh, wow. Kami Mun. It's one of those. Thank you, though. Thank you, Joseph Orange, Joseph Silver Struki? Strucy? It could go either way, honestly. I think I screwed it up, though. So I'm sorry about that. But it might go either way. I love you still, though. Thank you, Kevin Reagan, Blinker 002, Johnny Von Tugen, Michael Holder II, Daniel Howell, Ragnar the Green. Hello, Ragnar. Ragnar created the Discord, by the way, if I haven't mentioned that before. Thank you, Airman, Jose Perez, Kim Ellis, Brian, JJ Summers, Nikki Layman, D-Man's Land, who's not in the chat right now. To my knowledge, I'm not looking at the chat currently, because I'm looking at this. But, you know, he's always there in spirit. Thank you, Nolan. Thank you, Christina. Crunchy Face. Thank you, Fernando Silva. Always great to read your name. Rodrigo Darez. Beautiful Yoshi. Nat Potter. Kitsune Noel. Zachary Alexander. My other kitty is a tiger. Hello, tiger. Amy Strange. Michael Monroe. John Polish Impossible to Say. I think I said Polish last time. I'm going with Polish this time because I'm feeling better about Polish. Ralph the Broke Gamer, thank you very much. Thank you, Kurai, May Madison. May Madison. I'm sorry. Thank you, Stop T.O., Michael P. Frey 684, Sally from 3 Ice Cube Show, Christopher Barba, Brendan Wilbanks, Lennon Walrus, Pokemaniac, Link VIII, The Guy in the Store, Matthew Newitt, Hannah B, Kyle Nicholas, Jameson Wiley, Diego A. Lopez, Friend Carrick, I almost said Alec, but it's clearly Alec Dixon. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick Policio, Desmax, Chrome Party. Everyone wants to have a Chrome Party. Rebecca Twixberry, John Paul Hoare, Darth Penguin, Mark Ryan, Mitchell Shore. That rhymes. Alright. Thank you, Abdul Kareem Torres, Stabola, The Wheels in the Bus Go Die, Erlen Mattis Rees, A.O. Breezy, Richard Lahif, Greg Wolf, Mr. Bowler, Robert, Sergio, Diego Martinez, M Gamers, Mio Kurishima, Jay Steria, Escape Route British, Rory O'Carroll, Kempachi Ramasama, Anthony Mang, Squiggly Kip, say it with me, Fat D in the house. Thank you, Lucas Basque, Eric Compcho, Jonathan Klaus, Ryan Cole, Jacob Epler. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Noises. Problematic, and everyone else who supports me on Patreon. I love each and every one of you. And so I thank you, because that's how I do this. And now this is a special part of the end slate where we see how long this went on for. Hey, 6 minutes. The video was over 20 minutes, so I should only get like 2 people complaining about the length this time. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the new video, the new story time. I know it's been a actually a fairly long time since a bullshit creepypasta story time. And while this one may have been lacking on some of the bullshit you're accustomed to, I still hope you enjoyed the video. And I will see you soon with a new video. In the meantime, I'm Yuriofwind. This has been Slate Live. Thank you for watching. I love you all. And I love you all. Bye, everyone. I love you all.